Back to Zeke, he had left the dormitory and was wandering around the school grounds. All my school skills have changed. Their efficiency is insane. How am I still okay after staying up all night practicing? Zeke sighed. This was thanks to his unlimited vitality school skill, a skill that allows all fatigue to be quickly compensated for with an unlimited amount of vitality. It's an upgraded version of the abundant vitality skill. Returning to the story, while walking, Zeke also looked at the students practicing around him and thought that in his previous life, he thought this place was hell. But now that it is an official fake awakening, this place has become a paradise where money and power are not everything. But nothing is quite like this, he exclaimed inwardly. Suddenly, Owen called out from behind him, Zeke Draker, so you're in this special class too? Hearing someone call him, the protagonist glanced behind and quickly recognized the other person's identity. Owen Zekemans, the third young master of the Jim family, one of the three great families. Because of this man family's expertise in scheming, he used others to bully him and cleverly maintained a perfect image. But why is he being so friendly now? On the opposite side, Owen pretended to be kind and said, I invited you to dinner last night, but you didn't respond. Did you not receive the letter? In response, Zeke smirked, remembering the letter on his desk, and asked, Oh, the one on my desk. Seeing Zeke had recognized it, Owen continued, Then why didn't you reply? Hearing this, Zeke let out a cold chuckle and said, Well, you're quite funny, why should I reply? Seeing Zeke's attitude, before Owen could give an order, a lackey stepped forward to show his attitude. How rude, despite the young master's kindness. Zeke Draker, the owner of the voice, was a hulking man like a guardian, with an arrogant face. However, perhaps because he was insignificant, Zeke didn't recognize him. Who is this? He muttered. The hulking man, upon hearing this, laughed like an idiot. You don't know me, I look like someone from that worthless cradle. Returning to Zeke, without letting the man finish. He understood the lackey's intentions, however, he didn't have time to act with him, so he turned to leave. I understand you want to impress your young master, but remember who you're talking to. The hulking man seemed unwilling to waste words with Zeke. So, the moment he saw Zeke turn, he launched a surprise attack, throwing a lightning-fast punch at Zeke. Luckily, Zeke reacted in time. His body was pushed back, but he wasn't injured. From the attack, he got a sense of the opponent's strength. It seemed that advanced cadets could manipulate basic radiant energy. As for the hulking man, seeing Zeke unharmed, he loudly introduced himself. My name is Durbin Roswell. Here, they call me the Mighty DB. On behalf of young Master Owen, I'll teach you a lesson, he declared boldly, unaware of the danger approaching. Durbin the Mighty, a cadet who isn't even a knight, with such a ridiculous alias, the protagonist said with a mocking tone. Then, his body flashed, disappearing from his spot and instantly closing in on Durbin. At the same time, Zeke focused his power into his fist and landed a punch directly into Durbin's stomach, causing the hulking man to suffer so much pain that he spurted blood from both his nose and mouth. Next, his body flew backward like a cannonball. But it wasn't over yet. To avoid being bothered by these flies, Zeke observed Owen's remaining lackeys and challenged, after Durbin the Mighty, whose turn is it? Hurry up, Owen said from the opposite side. As Zeke had assessed, Owen, known for his cunning, didn't show anger at his lackey's defeat. Instead, he calmly led his lackeys past Zeke, saying, You really like being in the spotlight, don't you, Zeke Draker? Funny, Zeke muttered, watching their backs as they left. The Draker Academy is mainly divided into two classes. There's the regular class, which teaches that if one lacks talent, they must overcome it through hard work, and thus they follow a strict regime from early morning to late at night. Secondly, there's the special class, where one can freely choose subjects beyond the basic ones. Even within the academy, where the greatest talents gather, it's in this special class. So I had some expectations, but most of the people here are just alumni from the Cradle. What kind of special class is this? It's just a class of Cradle alumni, Zeke scoffed inwardly, observing the familiar faces he had grown tired of seeing. Then, while the class was noisy, the professor's loud voice suddenly rang out, reminding everyone of order and announcing to the new special class cadets that a very special person had arrived. Not only was he the commander-in-chief in the Eastern Empire War 20 years ago, But he was also the hero who stopped the Empire's invasion with his cunning. Please welcome General Howard Draker. With the professor's voice, a fat old man entered the classroom and waved to the cadets. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Returning to Zeke, with his knowledge, he naturally recognized the man, the headmaster of Howard Draker Academy. Howard Draker, the war hero, they revered him as a war hero and a tactical genius. But the truth was, he leaked information to the enemy for his own survival, unintentionally causing chaos among the enemy. He was just a lucky traitor. That rat wasn't a hero, but the mastermind behind my expulsion from the academy. I lost the only place I could return to, and ended up wandering through the Duchy of Troy until I was captured by human traffickers and sold to the Southern Cartel. I will make him pay. Zeke vowed inwardly, looking at the fat old man's unpleasant face. Then, after Howard had greeted the students briefly, he quickly left the classroom. The teacher continued the lesson. I believe you've all memorized the headmaster's words. Now, we'll begin the basic class immediately, so take your swords and go to the training ground. Yes, sir, the group replied in unison. Scene change. The indoor training ground of the special class. Despite being indoors, it was incredibly spacious. Meanwhile, Zeke wore a bored expression listening to the teacher's lecture. Who would have thought that even this special class had to learn basic dragon slaying techniques? In my past life, because I couldn't use radiant energy, I spent 2 years learning what someone could learn in 3 months. Please, make it easier, Zeke thought, rubbing his face in distress. At this moment, a young knight stepped forward to welcome the cadets. My name is Andre Draker and I will teach you the basics of dragon slaying. This is Rose Knight Andre Draker. However, perhaps because he was so young and had not yet established a reputation for himself, the students did not recognize him. He was so young that he was the official uniform of the Drake family. Among everyone, only Rek knew this person's identity, the Crimson Knight, Andre. Although not a pure-blooded awakened, he graduated early from Valhalla as valedictorian, a once-a-century genius bestowed upon the Draker family. Even the instructors of the special class were on a different level. He's known for his tough, uncompromising personality, Zeke thought to himself. And as he had anticipated, as soon as Andre saw the students below getting noisy and disorderly, he shouted, "Order! If you're done chatting, I'll begin the lesson. Draw your swords." Below, the students, seeing that he wasn't easy to mess with, quickly complied. At this moment, Andre noticed Zeke's sword and frowned. "That sword, student, what's that?" Hearing this, Zeke swung his sword, creating gusts of wind around him, and shrugged in reply. "As you see, I'm using this sword." In response, Andre coldly commanded, "Step forward, student, don't you know you should choose a sword suited to your body?" Hearing this, Zeke shook his head and sighed. I knew this would happen. I tried to impress him when I drew my sword, but it was useless. Better to show him my skill, he thought. The protagonist calmly said, "I can defeat you with this sword, sir." His calm words instantly changed the atmosphere around Andre. Next, he unleashed a mental pressure on Zeke, but unfortunately, it was blocked by Zeke's unwavering mental defense skill. Seeing his mental attack was useless, Andre calmly touched the sword at his hip and said, "I understand, student. If you want to learn with your body. If your sword touches my body, even slightly, you will not only be excused for your rudeness, but also exempted from this basic dragon slaying class. Don't worry, I don't intend to use my aura on a student," he added, to prevent Zeke from panicking, unaware that this offer made the protagonist inwardly ecstatic. Exempt from class, awesome. I can beat Andre because I know his weakness, but with Abel watching, it'll be dangerous if I draw more attention like I did at the cauldron. I'll graze his clothes and then lose, he thought. Zeke gripped his sword and said, "All right." His body immediately rushed forward like a flash of lightning, and as soon as he was close to Andre's body, he used all his strength to swing his sword, aiming at his throat, swinging the sword so hard that it made a tearing sound. However, it wasn't enough to trouble Andre. With a simple swing, he easily deflected Zeke's sword. Seeing this, the protagonist wasn't too disappointed. No wonder he's a Crimson Knight. This won't be easy, he thought. Then, Zeke began to continuously move and attack from all sides, but no matter the angle, he couldn't break through the Crimson Knight's defense. As time passed, the students below had been watching them fight for 30 minutes. A Draker Knight, he's on a whole different level. 30 minutes, and he hasn't even grazed his clothes, someone exclaimed. However, they didn't know that after continuously fighting for such a long time, Andre was starting to tremble from exhaustion. He began to look at Zeke with questioning eyes. What kind of absurd stamina is this? Even if I'm suppressing my aura, I can't believe I'm losing to a student. Indeed, the existence of purebloods is unfair. The more he thought about it, the more bitterness welled up in Andre's heart. On the opposite side, Zeke, seeing Andre's breathing become more rapid, knew his plan was going smoothly. His stamina is still lacking, he thought. And suppressing his aura like this is even more disadvantageous. The Draker family's aura cultivation method is famous for its peculiarity. You must activate your aura during training, daily activities, and even while eating and sleeping. Basically, you maintain it like breathing. In other words, Andre was essentially holding his breath. His inconvenient swordsmanship also consumed more stamina. But losing like this doesn't feel right. There's no other way. I have to force him to use his aura. Creating a manageable situation is useless. I need something to make him unconsciously use his aura. In other words, a desperate situation. A desperate situation. With that in mind, Zeke began to activate his agile footwork skill, making his body move like lightning, appearing and disappearing around Andre, making Andre's eyes dazed as he couldn't grasp Zeke's exact location. Impossible. How can a student use agile footwork? Andre thought in bewilderment. Just as he lost his guard, Zeke's figure instantly appeared behind him, simultaneously activating his critical strike skill. Feeling the danger, Andre immediately turned around. There was no other way. He had to use his aura and slowly retreated. He was forced to use his aura and slowly retreated. At that time, I only saw Andre raising his sword above his head to use his dragon-slaying skill. Chapter 1, Part 1, cutting through the sky. Just like that, Andre's earth-shattering shot swung down towards Zeke. Seeing that, the main character also reacted extremely quickly, raising his sword in front of his chest to block the attack. A deafening explosion echoed outwards. After blocking the attack, a large gash appeared on Zeke's sword. He himself was also severely injured. Zeke's eyes were filled with bloodshot veins. Damn it, that hurt, but I can't faint now. Zeke dropped his sword and rolled to the side, ending the fight. Seeing this, Andre slowly sheathed his sword. Though slightly dissatisfied, he conceded, "This student is exempt from the auditing class. Any other students who wish to be exempt?" The students below watched in stunned silence, knowing their teacher was furious. Anyone foolish enough to raise their hand now would surely face his wrath. Seeing no one step forward, Andre unleashed his anger on the group. "Fine, I'll take that as no one. Now, raise your swords, a demonstration for all of you." Time passed quickly. The scene shifts to the infirmary. The protagonist rests comfortably while the other students are exhausted in the training grounds. It was a pretty good showing. Though I didn't even graze his clothes, I forced Andre to use the energy weapon he said he wouldn't, proving my strength. In the end, Andre received a lesson, and I got some rest. We both won, but Andre's final attack was the most basic move of the Dragon Slayer technique. Chapter 1, Section 1, Sky Rend. However, since it was used by a Blue Knight, the power wasn't that impressive. Still, I managed to defeat a Blue Knight thanks to my stamina and unlimited healing. But that's still not enough to live freely, without limits. I need unstoppable power, the strength to never lose to anyone, Zeke thought. Suddenly, a strong smell of alcohol filled his nostrils. Then a voice spoke, "So you're Arthur's youngest son." Zeke's eyes widened as he saw a drunk man appear beside him. What the hell is this? He thought, staring at the other with wary eyes. The man's face showed amusement. He has the same eyes as that arrogant bastard, Arthur. I couldn't detect him despite the strong smell of alcohol, and that arrogant bastard Arthur, daring to call the current head of the Draker family that. Zeke asked, "Who are you?" Ignoring the question, the red-haired man asked, "What did you do earlier, kid?" He continued drinking, making Zeke wonder what kind of person he was. He's clearly acting arbitrarily, Zeke thought, asking, "What do you mean?" The stranger set his bottle aside and looked at Zeke with sharp, feigning innocent eyes. "Oh yeah, you were injured before, but how did it heal so quickly?" Zeke was slightly frightened. He noticed the healing. "I can't let myself be exposed. No one at the academy knows about my healing ability." Zeke clenched his fist, deciding to play dumb. "I don't know what you're talking about." The red-haired man didn't seem surprised. So the story will continue like this, huh?" Without warning, he swung his arm towards Zeke's neck. Luckily, the protagonist was always alert to him. He managed to dodge in time, otherwise, he might have been cut in two like the pillow behind him. Zeke grabbed the blanket and threw it at the man's face, obscuring his vision. His instinct screamed that if he didn't kill him, he would be killed. Zeke unleashed all his power, using his agile footwork, precise stabs, and fatal blows simultaneously. However, the opponent simply reached out a hand and easily grasped the sword, preventing it from moving even a centimeter. The nameless man even praised Zeke. "Your adaptability is impressive." Like a mercenary, the word struck a chord. Zeke inwardly shouted, "Who the hell is he?" Seeing his sword held, Zeke let go and smoothly retreated to maintain a safe distance. He watched the opponent warily, wondering, "Who the hell is he? A mercenary? Does he know about my past life?" The red-haired man played with Zeke's sword, amused. "Drop your sword and step back. I think you'd be a better mercenary than a knight." He flicked the sword towards Zeke. Zeke caught his sword, but remained wary. "That's what he means. I'd never felt this way since meeting my master. I'm sure, after that brief fight, there's a huge gap in our abilities. He could easily kill me if he wanted to. He's at least a Crimson Knight, maybe even stronger." Zeke relaxed his guard slightly. He couldn't contend with his opponent at his current strength. Unaware of Zeke's thoughts, the red-haired man asked, "That two-handed sword is basic equipment from the cradle, right? You have the talent, so why use that weapon?" Before Zeke could answer, the door opened. Andre, the Crimson Knight, entered. Recognizing the red-haired man, he said, "So you're here, Dexter, the gardener." Zeke was doubtful. The gardener, with that kind of strength? Dexter rubbed his ear, complaining to Andre, "How'd you know I was here, you persistent pest?" Andre replied, "You were in the training room earlier. You're annoyingly perceptive." Dexter grumbled. As Andre passed Zeke, he dismissed him. "You've been treated. You can go home now." Though Andre's tone was harsh, Zeke didn't want to face the red-haired man. "Yes, sir," he said, and hurriedly left. But before he could leave the room, Dexter said, "Kid, if you have time, come to the west greenhouse of the academy. I'll teach you a few useful things." Zeke pondered for a moment, then shook his head slightly. "No thanks," he said, and quickly left the room without hesitation, leaving Dexter behind, angrily shouting, looking at his beak. His personality is exactly the same as Arthur's. So back to Zeke. After closing the door, he immediately started using all his brain cells thinking about who the gardener Dexter was trying to trick. If he's at a level where he can easily call the master, A.T.H. Draker, by name, then he must be someone who only had one disciple, Andre, throughout his life. If I'm not mistaken, this must be Duke Drakraker, the Whirlwind Knight, one of the Black Knights, with the martial prowess to single-handedly fight an entire kingdom. He was a hot topic that suddenly disappeared one day, but I never expected him to be living and hiding inside this academy. Maybe he came here because he's here. The Duke is mentioned as a man with a terrifying reputation for decisiveness. There are even rumors that he earned the title of Black Knight simply because he liked the color black, but that rumor is probably nonsense. Currently, the Duke is showing strong interest in me, but receiving ordinary teaching just out of simple interest isn't something I'm interested in learning. If I'm going to learn something, I should at least learn his secret techniques. I'll turn that interest into determination. Thinking this, Zeke smiled confidently and secretly planned to outsmart the Duke. Time passed quickly. Scene changed to the magic class. The Academy's magic theory professor, Panin, was trying to teach. In this case, do you know what will happen? No one knows, he said awkwardly, looking at the students sprawled on their desks, sleeping soundly, without any interest in the lesson. Seeing this, Panin had to answer his own question. All right, when creating a spirit formula, due to the backlash, you're actually injured," before he finished speaking. Zeke suddenly raised his hand. "I don't understand the law of spirit energy circulation you mentioned earlier." On the podium, the mage Panin, seeing someone paying attention, his face lit up so much that Zeke had to remind him again before he snapped back to reality. "Oh, sorry, this is the first time I've received a question." As for the answer to spirit energy circulation, he began to explain in detail to Zeke. Time flew by until the end of class. The students were bored, chatting amongst themselves, wondering why they had to sit through this boring magic class. "Why do we have to learn magic theory at a night academy? It's basically nap time." Another student laughed, turning to Zeke. Unlike the lazy students beside him, he had to praise Panin's ability. That was an easy-to-understand lecture. "He's no ordinary professor," he thought. As he was packing his books to leave, the professor's voice suddenly rang out. "Wait, Zeke." Hearing his name, Zeke turned around and asked, "Yes, Professor." The professor took a breath and said awkwardly, "Nothing much. It's just that it's been a long time since I've had the feeling of teaching a proper class like I did with you. So, if you have any questions, come to my research lab anytime. I'm a former scholarship recipient from Delphoa Magic University, so I know a lot." Hearing this, Zeke thought even more highly of him. "I thought he wasn't an ordinary mage, but I didn't expect him to be a former student of Delphoa Magic University, the origin of magic." Thinking this, since Panin had said so, Zeke wasn't stupid enough to refuse. "I understand, Professor," he smiled, thanking his lucky stars. Being friendly with a mage is never a bad thing. Mages are good at math and are usually quick thinkers. They're better colleagues than knights. "Let's see if he's useful," Zeke muttered in his heart, while still thinking about how to best utilize this relationship. He noticed the Duke was sitting on a chair, as if waiting for him. "He's less patient than I thought. It's only been a week," Zeke shrugged, thinking. Meanwhile, the Duke noticed him stepping outside. He glanced at him and said, "Still not done, kid? Why haven't you gone to the greenhouse?" "You know what I mean. I'll teach you useful things." In response, Zeke turned on his acting mode and sighed dramatically. "I've told you, I'm not interested." On the opposite side, being a black knight and repeatedly rejected by Zeke, the Duke couldn't help but explode. "What? Why?" he yelled. Seeing this, Zeke continued to use some excuses he'd just thought up. "I know you're incredibly talented, but I'm busy with personal training right now." "Oh, that's it. Of course, personal training can't be neglected." "You think I'll just say that?" Before he finished speaking, the Duke's large body suddenly appeared behind Zeke, making the protagonist's eyes widen. However, before he could react, the Duke swung his hand and hit him hard on the back of the neck, causing the young man's eyes to roll back and he immediately fainted. Time passed quickly. Scene changed to the flower garden that the Duke was tending. Zeke slowly woke up from his stupor, rubbing the sore back of his neck. "I didn't expect him to hit me." Apparently, a week was too long for him. "So, this is the West Greenhouse," he said, observing his surroundings. In front of him, the red-haired old man, seeing Zeke awake, stopped watering and turned to drink wine. "So, you're awake, kid. Did you get kidnapped?" Zeke asked coldly, and the red-haired old man readily admitted. "Yes, I kidnapped you. I'm interested in you, kid," the Duke said, smiling with interest. Zeke knew the old man had revealed his hand. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. He's quite impatient, but not yet, he thought. Thinking this, Zeke activated his agile movement skill and dashed forward like a gust of wind. However, how could his speed possibly compare to the Duke's? Before he could run a few seconds, the Duke's face suddenly appeared in front of him, causing Zeke to flinch and step back. "He still sees me as a joke. I need something to ignite the fire." Thinking this, Zeke started asking probingly, "What is it about me that interests you so much?" "I asked you how you healed your internal injuries so quickly," the Duke replied. After hearing this, Zeke smiled, as if he had found a way to make the Duke interested in him. "So, that's what's bothering him. If he's that curious, then I should make him ask." Hearing this, the Duke's face became a little thoughtful, as if thinking. Next, his body disappeared before Zeke's eyes, causing him to wonder. He disappeared. Where did he go? He looked around, not noticing that from afar, a sword was spinning and flying towards him. Fortunately, at another time, Zeke realized the existence of this sword and quickly leaned to the side to avoid it. Next, Zeke also caught the sword and turned back to ask Duke what he was doing. In response, his uncle offered a proposition. "You want me to make you answer? That's too easy, let's make a bet. If you can land a single blow on my clothes, I'll grant you one wish. But if you give up, you'll have to tell me everything you've been hiding," Duke said, his face contorted in a crazed expression. Thus, the two began their duel. Time flew by until late afternoon, the garden now shrouded in dust from their battle. After a while, Duke muttered to himself, "What in the world is this kid doing?" 3 hours had passed, and not only did the boy possess incredible stamina and endurance, but his physical condition and wounds seemed to heal without limit. The more Duke thought about it, the more perplexed he became. No matter how many times Zeke was knocked down, he'd quickly get back up as if nothing had happened. On Zeke's side, although he hadn't lost, he hadn't found a way to win either. "I could do this all day, but I can't win," he thought. At this point, Zeke began considering whether to use the Dragon's Might skill he'd learned. It was dangerous and he'd never used it before, but against a Black Knight, it might be necessary. Zeke gripped his sword, and the air around him grew colder than ever, looking into Zeke's eyes. Even Duke couldn't help but break out in a sweat. "Good, that's more like it," he exclaimed with satisfaction. Immediately afterward, Zeke activated his agile footwork skill, causing his body to rush forward like lightning and immediately upon impact. When he was close to the opponent, Zeke swung his sword without the slightest hesitation on either side. Duke saw the sword coming but showed no fear. He even had time to think, "He's repeating the same attacks, he's fast, but compared to that glutton and the Tehran girl, he's nothing. But this malicious intent, I'm captivated by it. I should use a little radiant energy," he mused. Thinking about it, the red-haired uncle also got a little interested and began to cover his palm with his aura and prepare. Blocking Zeke's sword at the same time, the main character suddenly launched the Dragon Prestige skill, making the Duke feel like he was being stared at by something extremely terrible. Instinctively, the uncle's body suddenly swung his arm and hit the sword straight, causing it to break in half. Before Duke could process what he just felt, Zeke launched a whirlwind attack, engulfing the area in dust. "He's blocked my vision, but it'll be hard for him to find me," Duke thought. However, he didn't know that. With his Dragon Eye skill, Zeke was able to easily detect his location and immediately approaching him from behind, followed by a sword swing. Aiming straight for the Duke's nape, the sword passed right through this uncle's body. However, Zeke immediately discovered that his sword did not cut anything. What he slashed earlier was just an afterimage left by his uncle. Sure enough, Duke's figure vanished. Zeke was now surrounded by a whirlwind of dust, recognizing the technique. This was Duke's secret technique, a simple, fast movement creating a powerful gust of wind. This is why he's called the Whirlwind Knight. Zeke couldn't find a way to counter it. A second later, Duke's voice echoed from behind Zeke. Zeke immediately swung his sword backward, but his uncle's figure vanished again. Duke suddenly appeared before Zeke and declared, "Let's call it a draw, kid." Then, in a fit of pique, he punched Zeke, sending him flying backward like a cannonball. Having been pushed to his limits, even Zeke's regenerative abilities began to fail. A system message appeared. "Your exhaustion exceeds acceptable levels. For your safety, your consciousness will be forcibly shut down." "Figures," Zeke muttered before his vision went black. Time passed, and the scene shifted to Zeke's private room. He woke up, clutching his head. He looked around. "This is my room. Duke brought me back," he realized. Zeke sighed regretfully. "I almost had him. He truly is a Black Knight," he admitted. "I think I did everything I could, and it was useless. I tried to make Duke complacent by repeating attacks hundreds of times, then used Dragon's Might at the crucial moment to create an opening. And used Dragon's Eye to attack him, still not enough. The skill Duke used at the last minute was definitely his secret technique. I lost consciousness from overusing Dragon skills. But I think I saw his secret. The absurdly high-speed movement technique he used with his extremely trained body was definitely something. Help Andre, who has poor physical strength, become a Red Knight. It's a shame I missed the chance to learn it, but it was worth it." Dragon's Might's pressure even affected a Black Knight for a moment. Most common opponents would fall instantly. Zeke was satisfied with Dragon's Might's power. Then, a notification appeared before him. You have an unread message. Confirm to open. An unread message, Zeke wondered, quickly pressing confirm. Another series of notifications appeared. D-rank skill agile footwork upgraded to C-rank skill high-speed movement. Your soul has grown due to your strong will. With the growth of your soul, your system functions have been activated. The next function can be activated by spending additional causal points. Miniature map of geographical terrain features that can be seen through the appearance of a map locked requires 20 points to unlock a compartment that can store as many items as possible within the capacity to meet locked requires 20 points to unlock an infinite level quest bag that includes tutorials and quests for the effective development of low-level administrators locked requires 45 points to unlock. Current causality points, 40, returning to Zeke, so many new things appeared, he couldn't help his curiosity. A bunch of things appeared. According to the description, the storage compartment seems pretty cool. Let's check the storage compartment first, he thought. He immediately spent 20 causality points to unlock this new function, and immediately after, the system issued a return message. If you choose the item you want, it will be stored inside the storage compartment. When retrieving an item from the storage compartment, you can think of the item's name or shape. The space occupied by the item in the storage compartment depends on its size and weight. If you want a larger storage compartment, you can use causality points to increase its size. Returning to Zeke, after reading the description, even a cow could understand how to use it. Choose an item you want. I can activate skills by thinking about them, so putting items into the storage compartment must be the same. Thinking this, Zeke casually picked up his broken sword and silently said the word store in his heart. Next, the sword in Zeke's hand suddenly disappeared and was transferred into his inventory. The two-handed sword disappeared and occupied 2 slots out of 28 in the storage compartment, so that's what the system meant when it said the space occupied by an item in the storage compartment depends on its size and weight. To take it out, I need to think of its name or shape. Thinking about this, Zeke concentrated his thoughts a little, and immediately afterward, the sword reappeared in his hand. I was thinking about a subspace storage, but this is even better. That treasure is very expensive. It's clear, but it's difficult to find something to put it in, and you can even expand the storage space by using this new excessive advantage function pointer. Just a low-level administrator function. What will it be like when I reach a higher level? If these points are this valuable, I can't use them recklessly. Looks like I have to change my plan. Let's think about it a bit. At this time, the old butler Decker's voice rang out from outside. Can I come in? Young master heard that. Zeke also nodded and said come in. What is it? In response, Decker took out a small piece of paper and explained, there's a message for you. He said you'll know who it's from if I say the gardener, Decker said, gesturing to the opposite side. Zeke quickly took the piece of paper and observed the paper. It read, Kid, if you want to challenge me again, anytime. Looking at these words, Zeke smiled, as if he had caught a fish. It seems it wasn't a complete failure. Does he mean a draw? Anyway, it means there's still a chance. Thinking about this, Zeke clenched his fist and gradually felt the Duke's secret manual calling him to learn. Returning to Old Man Dexter, he continued to remind the protagonist, I have one more thing to tell you. I found the blacksmith you mentioned earlier. Hearing this, Zeke's eyes lit up, and he immediately asked, Oh, is that so? So, when is the appointment? In reply, the old man hesitated slightly. There's a problem. The blacksmith has refused the appointment. He's no longer making weapons.